The wind howled, trees swayed, branches scratching against the old house. Inside, shadows danced, fueled by the flickering light of a single candle. John sat alone, staring into the darkness. He felt a chill, a cold that seeped into his bones. The old house creaked and groaned, a symphony of unsettling sounds. He tried to ignore it, to focus on the crackling fire, but the feeling of unease persisted. There was something here. He could feel it. A presence lurking just beyond the veil of reality. He closed his eyes, trying to block out the growing dread, but the whispers followed him, slithering into his thoughts. He wasn't alone. He knew it now. The house had always been there, perched atop the hill like a watchful gargoyle. Locals whispered tales of its dark history, of a malevolent entity that resided within its walls. John had dismissed them as folklore, mere superstition. Now, he wasn't so sure. He had inherited the house from a distant relative, a reclusive old man who had vanished without a trace. John had jumped at the chance to escape the city, seeking solace in the quiet countryside. The house was a labyrinth of dark corridors and dusty rooms, each one colder than the last. Cobwebs clung to the furniture like ghostly shrouds, and the air was thick with the scent of decay. He wandered through the house, his heart pounding in his chest. He felt a presence following him, always just out of sight. The first touch came as a gentle brush against his cheek, like cobwebs caressing his skin. He turned sharply, but there was nothing there, just the darkness and the sound of his own ragged breathing. He tried to ignore it, to convince himself it was just his imagination, but the touches continued, growing bolder, more insistent. A cold hand on his shoulder, a whisper in his ear. He started seeing things in the shadows, fleeting glimpses of movement that vanished as quickly as they appeared. Sleep offered no escape. His dreams were plagued by nightmares, visions of shadowy figures and whispers that echoed in his mind even after he woke. The whispers escalated, transforming into distinct voices. They taunted him, mocked his fear. They spoke of things he couldn't possibly know, secrets buried deep within the house's history. One voice, deeper than the others, seemed to hold a strange allure. It spoke of power, of knowledge beyond human comprehension. John tried to resist, but the voice was seductive, hypnotic. It whispered of his deepest desires, of his hidden fears. It played on his vulnerabilities, tempting him with promises of greatness. He found himself drawn to the attic, compelled by an unseen force. The voice grew stronger as he climbed the creaking stairs, urging him forward. The attic was a suffocating space, filled with the musty scent of decay and forgotten memories. Dust motes danced in the faint rays of sunlight that pierced through the grimy windows. He felt a presence here, stronger than ever before. In the center of the room sat a large wooden trunk, its surface covered in intricate carvings. He knew somehow that this was what he had been drawn to. Hesitantly, he reached out and touched the cold metal latch. As his fingers brushed against it, the voices reached a fever pitch, urging him to open it. With a deep breath, he threw open the trunk. Inside, nestled amongst yellowed parchment and decaying velvet, lay a skull. As he gazed into the skull's vacant eyes, he felt a surge of power, raw and intoxicating, coursing through his veins. He stumbled back from the trunk, dropping the skull with a clatter that echoed through the silent house. As he did so, the shadows in the attic seemed to coalesce, taking on a form of their own. A figure emerged from the darkness, tall and skeletal, its body shrouded in a tattered black cloak. Its face was hidden within the depths of its hood, but John could feel its gaze piercing through him, cold and calculating. The figure spoke, its voice a raspy whisper that seemed to claw at the edges of his sanity. It told him of ancient pacts, of sacrifices made and souls consumed. It told him that he was now one of them, bound to the darkness forevermore. John tried to scream, but no sound escaped his lips. He tried to run, but his legs refused to obey. He was trapped, both by the entity before him and by the darkness that had taken root within his own soul. The figure reached out a skeletal hand, its touch sending a jolt of pure terror through John's body. He closed his eyes, bracing himself for the inevitable. But the touch never came. He opened his eyes to find himself sitting bolt upright in bed. On the hilltop, silhouetted against the rising sun, stood the old house. And watching him from the attic window, a skeletal figure with glowing red eyes.